If my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray, and seek my face, and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven, and will forgive their sin, and will heal their land.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Hello, Christian Patriots, and welcome to Church and State, where we strive to plug you into the pew and plug you into politics. I'm your host, Caleb Collier. With me, as always, Pastor Gabe Blomgren.
Good morning, Caleb. How you doing?
I'm doing very well today. I'm excited for our guest.
Yes.
You know, so often, Gabe, obviously I've been involved in politics for some years now, and the question that I always get is, what about the judges? Like,
Yeah.
I can figure out who to vote for state rep or for city council, but what about the judges? You know?
During voting, there's always a phone call from our house to you asking about different spots and positions. And then the judges ones, that is the hardest to differentiate where their platform is, whether they're Republican, Democrat, because it's a little bit more tight-lipped, I've noticed. They're able to hold their cards back.
Yeah, it's not even necessarily Republican or Democrat. It's who's going to actually judge the law appropriately.
Yeah.
With a constitutional bent is what I'm looking for.
And I'm obviously, us as lay people, I don't have time to study their legal counsel and how they've voted as far as, they don't vote. They try cases. So, or at least, judges listen and interpret the law, as far as I know. So that's how much I know. I'm literally completely out of the loop. So I'm so glad that we actually get to sit down. I want to hear from the voice of our future judge.
Absolutely. And this is why I'm very excited to have our guest here. So Marshall Casey, I just wanted to say thank you so much for joining Church and State.
You bet.
So you are currently running for Washington State Court Judge Division III Position 2. And who are you running against?
I'm running against Tracy Staub.
Okay.
And so this is for the appellate court. And the appellate court in Washington, we've got one appellate court. Okay, I need to get closer to the mic. We've got one appellate court, but we've got three divisions. And so Division 3 basically hears any appeal from the eastern side of the state, east of the Cascades.
Okay, so this is a very important position, obviously. Yep. All right.
Yep.
So first things first, I love your website. I love the color design. This is very, very clever. It's not something you see very often, actually, the yellow and black together. It seems like most people are using the reds and the blues typically. So it immediately catches my eye. And for our audience, MarshallCaseyForJudge.com. MarshallCaseyForJudge.com. I highly recommend you get in here. You start looking at it. As I'm reading through here, one of the things that I love that you say, I'm gonna quote your website here. It says, "When you feel wronged, the judicial system gives you the ability to tell your story to your community and get your day in court." Phenomenal. Now, is that your words?
That is my belief. This website, so I really, I wasn't planning on announcing until like April 1st, but apparently you have to file with the PDC so you can pay for stuff. So what I did in January to the end of March is I took time to build my website to say, this is what I believe in. So those are my words. All of that's chosen by me. Because to me, getting your ability to tell your story in court, it's what makes us, I think justice is written in us as human beings, and we need to feel like we get a chance to do that. And too often I've been in court and I've seen people shut down. Just one of the, if you guys don't mind if I tell a
Please
quick
do.
story. It was amazing to me. I go over and I help people who are being evicted once a month, and it's kind of my penance for my previous banking career. And I was over there helping this woman, and half the situation was resolved. Yes, she was to be evicted, but the other half was how much did she owe, if she owed anything. And there was a dispute over that. It took me almost 2 hours of arguing to a judge to get her a trial by jury. And the judge was just going to say, no, I'm going to rule as the judge and just put this in. I'm like,
That's positively unconstitutional.
well, that was my 2 hours of argument. I'm like, you got facts here. You got issues here.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be a problem. You need to give her a jury. And 2 hours. And so, and she didn't get a chance to, we finally got it. And that's her chance to be heard. And so that is 100% critical to me, that everyone makes sure they get that, because it's your chance to right a wrong.
Yeah, I love how our country is built. We are given representation, and I see even Hollywood skewing how this works. You know, people's minds are changed by how the judicial system works, and frankly, people don't have a clue at how much goes into a trial. I'm recently now going into kind of eminent domain issue at my home, and I did not know how much goes into a trial, and it is a very labor intensive thing to come to the bottom line, the brass tacks. What is the truth? And you know, at one point in my life, I thought that it's ridiculous how much it costs for the legal system. But now seeing it up close, I understand why, because you have to get to the truth.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
One of the things that I look for in someone is that character, the core character. I want to know about that. And so as I'm reading through about you, and this is something, you know, and I've known you for a few years now, but this is something I didn't know about you. You actually went over to the Marshall Islands.
Yeah.
And you were teaching over there.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, that was, I'm thinking back, that was 20 years ago. No, so when I was out of high school, I went through a program at my church, and then there came an opening to go to the Marshall Islands and teach school there. And so I decided, you know, that really was a thing I wanted to do. And it was a great experience. There's nothing like living in another country that is a third world country. I mean, it was the island we lived on. We were lucky if we had power at times. We were lucky if we had water. We got, I think, 5 minutes of water every day. And it was crammed, and it was great. It was so much fun to, I mean, when you're 21, I think I was 20, turning 21. It was a wonderful experience. And I'll tell you this, it really changed the way I eat. I'm not as cautious.
That's good.
That's good. Yeah, no, that's really good. That's, you know, when I hear this, when you're working in the community, you know, giving back your time to ensure that people that are getting evicted actually have their day in court. When I'm hearing that you're, you know, volunteering your time, even if it was 20 years ago, to go to the Marshall Islands and to actually teach, this is somebody that I can stand behind, right? Somebody who, it's not about them, obviously. It's about giving back to the community, and for you in particular, it's about that dogged pursuit of truth. And that's something that I've learned just through my relationship with you over the last few years. You have that desire to pursue truth. So where does that come from? Was that just instilled by your dad, or is it just, you know, part of where you went to school?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I don't know if I know where that entirely comes from. I do come from a family of lawyers, but my great rebellion in life was to become a banker. And so I went into banking for 9 years, and then I decided I was moving up in management, and I'm like, you know, that's not what I want to do. Where's my passion? And I really thought about it, and my passion was really the law in many ways. It came from, I think I tell it in there, where my brother and my dad were all camping, and they were talking law, and it just lit up a passion in me. And so my wife almost killed me when I went to law school. She's like, "You're doing what?" But that's where my passion is truly, I found it in the law. It's truly, I love digging deep. I love the way it works in our community. I love it. And, you know, the interesting thing, just to go off the question here, I'd started thinking of running for the court about 2 years ago, or 2 years December, and so we were having the appellate court justices were coming and talking to people and answering questions. And so I asked them, what do you miss? Because every one of them had some kind of practice before law. And so what did you miss? coming from being a lawyer to going to the bench. And one of the things they said is we miss being able to fight for clients.
Mhm.
And so that is one of my passions, and it's one of the things I'm going to miss. And so it's one of the things I'm really working on now is making sure I enjoy it.
Yeah.
So during my run.
I get a suspicion. I don't know where this is coming from. And I usually don't jump into the God thing right away, even though I am a pastor. But I feel like God is leading you down this path for some reason. And I have to say, Marshall, you're very, I know you're a skilled lawyer and able to defend people, but I think God has this for a purpose. What has God done to kind of show you to go for this? What is he stoking up inside you that led you down this path right now?
So actually, that's a deep question. For me, I'm always cautious when I say God told me to do something,
Right.
because I'll tell you, I have so many times had my own desires that have turned out to be
Right.
not. So I'm cautious in that, but I'll say this. The choice to go into law was not one that was, it was really something I feel like I'm called to do. And then there always has been a passion for me for running for judge. And the choice, I originally was going to go for the Superior Court bench, was kind of my thought, because, you know, you got to work your way up is the theory. And so, and I, actually my choice came from, I do a planning session every year where I go and spend about 3 days and spend some time in prayer. I actually grow a beard as my fast for it. I
Love it.
fast from shaving for about a month,
That's
getting
great.
ready for this. And that really was what opened up in, it was November of 2018 where I really felt like, you know, the Court of Appeals. I realized it's coming open in 2020. I realized that I want to see more respect for juries. I want to see more respect for the legislature on that court. And I just felt like it was the place for me to go.
Wow.
Now you've got a beautiful wife, 3 beautiful children. They're fully supporting what you're doing here.
Yeah, actually, I've got to get my sign up of them holding my signs as my best endorsement. Yes, they totally are. I've gotten to see a new side of my wife in the midst of this, which is one of full, she's always supported me, but one of just like, she's got a passion for it too.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, it's great.
That is so vital when you get involved in politics. If you don't have the support of your family, you're not going to go very far, to be quite honest. So I'm very happy to hear that your family is fully supportive. So I'm going to throw a curveball at you right now.
Yes, please do.
All right, give me your best lawyer joke.
My best lawyer joke. No, I've heard many over the years.
That's what I would have imagined.
So I'm trying to think of my best one, and there's some pretty good ones. You know, there's the common one: why do you bury lawyers 3 feet down rather than 6?
Why?
Or 6 feet down rather than 9 feet down rather than 6.
9 feet down rather than why?
There we go. Because deep down, they're really nice guys.
All right, that's a good one.
I'll remember that.
I will remember that as well. I had to do that
I'm
to
going
you.
to tell that to my lawyer.
Are you?
I'm
Okay.
sure he's heard it, but we'll see.
Well, you got to give credit to Marshall then.
Okay, I will.
All right, there we go. So you've had some interesting cases, and we were actually discussing one of your more interesting cases as of late anyway.
Yeah.
And so tell us a little bit about that, because especially from a church and state perspective, this one is of considerable interest.
Yeah, it touches both.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. So fortunately, I'm allowed to talk about this one. You're not typically allowed, but my client has said, yeah, you're allowed to talk about this one. So about a year ago, well, it was October of 2018. And in October of 2018, a friend of mine calls me and he goes, hey, listen, I just got disciplined by the city. They're going to lay me off and all this stuff. And I go, well, tell me more. He goes, well, it's for sexual harassment. I go, well, tell me more. And he goes, well, I told a homosexual assistant of mine that I believe in the Bible. I go, how's that sexual harassment? And I go, send me over this paperwork. I want to see what's going on. So he sends it to me, and they've literally accused him of 3 things. One is saying to a homosexual, this is their sexual harassment claim, I believe I have love in my heart for all people, but I believe what the Bible says. 2, he was playing Christian music. And 3, he had a conversation with him about what it's like to be a homosexual. So those were the 3 things they accused him of. And so I told him, I go, listen, this is a hot topic button. It may be easier if you just take the lay off and go your merry way. So he sends out this email. And at the end of the email, he signs it, "Be blessed." And so they decide that they're not happy with laying him off. They're going to haul him back in and really punish him to fire him. And
Simply because he said, "Be blessed."
well, and there's another line in the email. It's like 3 pages that are very, 3 paragraphs that are very pleasing. But one of them in it, he says, through sports, because he's a sports director, we make friends for life. And some may want to make us enemies. And so they interpreted that as him being critical of him.
Oh my gosh.
So they do that. We go through this thing where we have a huge statement in this meeting where I'm like, you guys need to be careful. This is bordering religious discrimination. Well, they go through with the layoff, and we appeal it to a commission. And interestingly, I thought we were going to lose in front of the commission because the whole issue was framed as harassment of homosexuals versus religion. That was their entire case law. That was the entire framing of this thing. We went in there, though, and we dealt with it along the lines of, listen, let's go through your harassment policies. I want to know in your harassment policy where it is so offensive to say, because the harassment policy says it needs to be something so offensive that everyone would know it's offensive. And I'm like, I want to know where saying I believe in the Bible is so offensive that it's equal to me swearing and threatening to beat you up. And so we went through this thing, and that's how we tried the case, and we came out winning it. And even after we won, though, they then drug him through the newspapers. I mean, I read the newspapers on this thing, and it's like, that's not the case that went down. That's not the guy I know. And they refused to reinstate him and refused to follow. And their whole thing was, they continued to frame it as, and this is the thing that bothers me on politics and the law, is the law can be a powerful tool in many ways. But when we go into it to do politics, we don't, I mean, sometimes you screw it up, and they wanted to make this a political issue. How do we protect against religion coming into and being talked of here on two homosexuals? And the weird thing, I may have been going about this case too long, but the fun thing about the case is his assistant came to him, the very guy complaining came to him and asked him for prayer.
Oh.
And my client prayed with him. And he saw that as, I'm not going to condemn you, I'm going to pray for you. And this is my thing. And they had that kind of relationship. The very Christian music that the homosexual assistant was complaining about, he put on himself. He turned it on. And then he started complaining about it later on, and this whole thing. And I asked the commission, or I asked the people in the city about this. And their response was, well, he may have done it just because he felt like it was good for him. I'm like, no, he's quite literally coming. How's that harassment? And so it was a fascinating case, but I think when I look at it, I really do think there is a view out there that church isn't allowed anywhere in government.
Right.
Yeah, and you read, though, the fascinating thing of that view, it doesn't fit with any of our Supreme Court decisions. There's a case, I'm sure you guys saw the Masterpiece Bake Shop case that came out, but they quote back into this other case that says no officer, high or petty, has the right to tell us what is orthodox in religion, politics, and many other views. But that's the thing we have going on, is it's not orthodox to talk about this or that. And I think that just doesn't agree with anything we've got coming out of our foundation is who we are, but it definitely doesn't even agree with the current Supreme Court case law. So.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. You know that so-called separation of church and state, which obviously Gabe and I take great issue with that. It's why
We
we
rail on that.
we do. We talk about it enough, so I won't belabor that. But
But
anybody listening to the
people
show
still interpret it wrong.
I know they do, but what's interesting now is you're currently seeing the state heavily involved in the churches, and we're going to address that actually in another episode, Gabe. But yeah, I love to hear from you that you were able to take on this case because obviously this was in fact religious persecution. This individual, from what I've been able to read, and I did read that spokesman article, and it was horrible, but it's the spokesman, so I mean it's just they're going to be accurate about 10% of the time, in my opinion. But yeah, they went after this individual. They actually tried him over the court of public opinion, which is very dangerous, right? But you through taking this on, were able to prove that this man was in fact innocent, and because of that. That is one of the big reasons for me anyway as to why I'm supporting you so much as you move for this position.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely.
I think if we're wise, we'll realize not just us as radio people, but everyone who is seeking justice, just like you said, your passion is the law. And for all of us who are right now just living about our lives, we never know when we're going to get that email or that phone call or that PR meeting where we're going to have to sit down and somebody's going to tell us, we're filing suit against you. You need to pack up your things and go. We as Christians and as fellow brothers in Christ, that we don't know when that could be us, and we see it happening more and more and more. And what we need to do is support godly lawyers, godly legislators, and people of moral conscience like you. I see the ability for you to not only protect and to watch over Christians, but also Muslims, people of all faith. And everyone in this nation is entitled to fair representation. And a judge needs to be integral. There cannot be preference shown to one religion over another. And I see that because God is, he's set us up with, he says it rains on the just and the unjust. If you look in Ecclesiastes, you look at Solomon's wisdom, you look at how God's built the earth, he puts people like you, Casey, in positions like your position for a purpose. So I pray us as Christians support you, and I support you as well, along with you.
Thank you.
So, on your page, I'm returning to it. You're talking about your broad experience in law, and you're talking about all these individual rights that you've actually been engaged in litigation with. Right to self-expression. You've got freedom of speech. You've got freedom of movement. That's a very important one, especially in lieu of COVID-19, which I won't bring up any more than that. But right to property. Personal property, defending against foreclosure, property boundaries, land use. Right to safety. Right to family, vulnerable adult action. This is exactly what I'm looking for in a candidate. I want to be able to talk to an individual like this. Like let's just take one of these. What does freedom of speech mean to you?
Freedom of speech means that everyone should have the right to express their opinions, regardless of my belief in the content. And I'll just talk real quickly about the spokesman put in their fascinating case when they were talking about me getting moving my office and Matt Shea moving on. They put in there this case about this lawsuit we had against Eastern Washington University because they fired a guy for an article he wrote, and they disagreed with the content of his speech. And for me, the freedom of speech, the reason I bring that up is I never read the article. I refused to read the article because anytime anyone ever asked me what the article was about, and if I agreed or disagreed, I wanted to say I didn't care. Because to me, it's your right to express your opinion, and I think it's become even more powerful today, is if you suppress someone's opinion, you end up with two problems. Number one, they may have had some wisdom that we just missed. And but number two, they now feel like their only response is possibly violence. And that's the importance of protecting freedom of speech is you don't want to drive anyone to violence. You want to be able to hear them. And number two, it's amazing when someone comes out and speaks who I disagree with. Sometimes they either trigger me to figure out why I disagree deeper, or they may trigger me to say, maybe I was a little bit wrong. Maybe I didn't hear the full thing. And so the minute you clam that up, that's what it means to me. Quick answer.
It's a fantastic answer. It's dead on.
I'm just thinking of how our forefathers just embraced free market capitalism and how this is like free market capitalism of the mind. Like when you suppress the opponent of your thought, you're literally creating a selfish monopoly, and you're not allowing somebody else to speak in your life, even if you disagree. And I just love how the forefathers thought. I love how they created this environment where they didn't even show preference to their own religion at times because they wanted to make sure that their religion was protected. It's an upside down kingdom. If Jesus said, if you lose your life, you find it.
Right.
And so it's like, man, I'm hearing this stuff and my brain's exploding right now, Casey, because this is so true. If we suppress people, we can drive them to violence. Never really verbalize that. Now, of course, the left's going to hear. They're saying they're going to get violent if they can't speak. See, it's so. I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Why is the world right now infatuated with their own opinion and being so easily offended? Oh, we're down to seconds.
Yeah. As you're getting into this deep question, I have to turn the clock to you to let you know. Yeah.
We'll get that answer at a later date. Maybe.
Yeah. Maybe.
We got to hear about your website.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. What I want to do is I want to take this time. You got 30-second stump speech. Go ahead.
My 30-second stump speech is, I love the law. I love Eastern Washington. And I'm really excited to be on the Court of Appeals because I think I'm going to bring to it a wonderful ability to make sure the law is well applied in Eastern Washington, in my hometown. And so this is my passion. And actually, I'll tell you what I'm going to bring to the bench. I believe in juries, and I believe they need to be respected more. I believe in the voice in our legislature that when it's done correctly, it needs to be respected. And I believe the people need to be respected. So that's what I bring to the bench.
Excellent. That is perfect. And MarshallCaseyforJudge.com. Go to that website. All right. Church and State is brought to you in part by Covenant Church and Mountain View Vital Medicine. Always remember the tree of liberty is most likely a birch. And with that, Church and State is out.
God bless.
Suppose it goes quick.